Welcome to the long-awaited next episode of Talks on God with my friend David. Have you been traveling the world? Has our podcast been so well received that you've had speaking engagements internationally? Is that what's
No,
happened?
no, no,
Well, our three users may disagree. Our three viewers.
right.
Let's,
Our apologies for being so infrequent lately with these, but that's
I
just
know, I blame David 100%.
just how it turned out. But here we are.
Here we are. Okay, so um, what I'd like to talk about today is let's talk about frequency based decisions, because how are you supposed to know the right thing to do? Especially, politically, we got the left and the right, and we got people with great arguments on what's the right thing to do about spending and government spending on, personal choice and all the things people voted for. Or, man, how about just like day-to-day decisions on hiring and firing people? I run a team. Or what what car insurance should I use? Should I give my brother some money? He's asking me for $100. Should I give that guy on the street $5? It's begging for money. Should I go to church today? Right? It's endless. So what comes up for you when we talk about frequency based decisions? Because that's not right and wrong. Uh it's not even really result driven. It's something different. What is that?
I don't know. Wait, let
That's all we have today, folks.
me. That's it. I'm out of practice. I'm trying to put this on. You know, I'm screwing it up. I'm trying to put it on airplane mode. Obviously, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Well, I guess well, while you figure out what you're doing, the the mind
There we go. Okay.
in mind field frequency. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a mind detector,
Yeah.
a mind
Yeah.
detector.
Yeah. Is there a question there, or are you just trying to tell me
I'm
something?
babbling. I'm just like stalling for time.
Well, so the thing that comes to mind is, in general, we have two sources of information available to us. The most common one, the one most everybody uses, is your mind, right? So you have a problem, you think about it, you come up with a solution, and then you execute it, right? Which is I don't think it's that great, but it's what most people use, right? The other source of information that's available to you is, you could say, divinity and subconscious. Um, so contacting your subconscious, a lot of times your subconscious will work as a feeling. But more commonly, let's just say you're trying to remember somebody's name and you're going, oh, what's his name? What's his name? What's his name? The harder you push to remember that, the further away it gets, right? Whereas if you
It,
just say, what's his name, and just intend to remember that name, then let it go, then a lot of times, a couple minutes later, your subconscious will pop up with the name, right? So the subconscious is one of those things you can't force. You got to learn to work with your subconscious. It's a lot like trying to fall asleep, right? If you trying to go to sleep, you'll never go to sleep. So sleeping is more like just letting go, right?
mm,
And then sleep overtakes you, right? There's some techniques you can use that help, but so it's different. It's different than your conscious mind. You're trying to get into sleep by using your conscious mind has the opposite effect. So so far we talked about, there's using your conscious mind to solve problems. That's where you think about it and you ponder it and you try different solutions, right? And you come up with whatever you're going to come up with. Contacting your subconscious mind is, once again, you intently present that question Like, what am I going to do about this problem at work? And then just relax. And a lot of times your subconscious will then pop up a solution for you, right? It's like you're in the middle of dinner, all of a sudden it hits you. Oh, I should try this. And a lot of times that's a better response than just trying to grind it out with your conscious mind, right?
Uh,
How many times have we been struggling with something, and then all of a sudden, boom, the answer hits you? Well, so then there's the super conscious mind, or the mind of your soul, you could say, and it's very similar to contacting your subconscious. You set the intention, and then you let it go and relax. So people have that experience when they're a lot of times praying to God for an answer, right? That you pray to God for the answer and you go to bed and you wake up in the morning. A lot of times, boom, you have a really good solution. So that's that. So the difference between your subconscious and your superconscious mind, or the mind of your soul, is the subconscious contains, let's put it this way, the mind contains all the information you remember. That's what you can work with, right?
mhm.
All the information you've been exposed to that you can remember. A lot of times you forget critical details, which of course will affect your decision making. Oh yeah, I forgot I'm about to be fired. That so I don't really have a position to do this and this and this at work. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right. So the subconscious mind contains all the information you've ever been exposed to in your whole life, and if you believe in reincarnation, in all your previous lives. So it's a much vaster a source of information. The only problem is with the subconscious a lot of times develops a slant on your life due to your programming of your subconscious at some point. And I found as a hypnotist that many times those decisions were made when you're 3 years old.
Mm.
You know, I've had patients where maybe their dad left their mom when they were 3, and they made the decision that men can't be trusted. So that
Mhm.
was a really, really powerful decision made at 3 that's deeply in the subconscious. And then as they grow up, they don't remember they made that decision, but they've always, their whole life, never really always been kind of suspicious of men. Never knew why.
Mhm.
It's because, so in that case, the subconscious is not giving you ultimate information. It's giving your information with the bias of your programming to it. So that's not always ideal. So let's just say your programming is money's a source of all, the root of all evil, and at a young age you decide money's evil. Well, every time you go to make a financial decision, a lot of times your subconscious will be working in the background and saying, well, you don't want any of that evil stuff, it's bad, right? So
Right.
it'll just keep sabotaging every financial decision you make, right? So then the super conscious mind is, you could say, the mind, the aspect of you that's in contact with God. So I think one of the ways to really tell the difference between superconscious mind information and subconscious mind information is the frequency of it. The frequency, any information that comes from your superconscious mind has a very, very high spiritual frequency to it. And what does that mean? That means there'll be no fear in it. There'll be no anger in it. There's no resentment. There's none of those negative vibratory states in it. It's always kind of an uplifting state, right? So once again, let's just say you got some difficult decision to make, and you pray at night to God. So God, please guide me on this. I'm really clueless. And I really need some help. And go to bed. Hold that thought very powerfully and go to sleep. And then a lot of times when you wake up in the morning, you'll have an answer, but it's an answer that feels really positive. It's like, yeah, you know what, that feels right. There's no fear embedded in it. There's no negativity embedded in it. There's no resentment. It's not like, oh my God, if I don't do this, it's going to be terrible. So that's what I would say when you're dealing with problems in life. Now, God gave you all three aspects of that mind to be used, right? So there's some things that are easily solved with the conscious mind, right? So an example is, let's just say you decide to buy a car, right? And you use your conscious mind. Well, let me examine my budget, right? So how much do I have to spend? Okay, now let me look at like Consumer Report and see what's reliable, right? And so then you boil that down to the car and the model. it's like, oh well, what color? What color should I buy? And you say your prayers, and you consult your subconscious and your superconscious mind, and you can only get anything at all. Well, that's your higher self saying it doesn't freaking matter what color the car is. Whatever color you get is going to be fine. You've already made good choices. So yeah, whatever
Yep.
color you want. And I find it's the same with prayer. That many times when God's not answering, truly not answering, a lot of times He's saying, "Yeah, whatever you want, I'll bless. It's fine with me. You make your choices. The choices that you're thinking about, any of them will be fine. I'll bless whatever everyone you do." But you and I have talked about this before. In order to hear God clearly, you have to be uh, unattached, unattached to it. Because if you're really attached to, let's just say you got a job here in town or you got a job in Hawaii, both opened up. They both seem pretty good. And you go, man, I really, really want to go to Hawaii. Well, if you ask God, but you're kind of saying, here, la 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 la, here, la la la, Hawaii. Oh, okay, Hawaii. I'll go. Yeah, I'll go to Hawaii. So, in order to really hear God, you got to be unattached in the sense that you're equally willing to do either one, right? You may not equally like either one, but you're equally willing to do either one. And I
I
think
think
that
I think that's really that's like a linchpin on the whole system right there is
it's
the
it really
attachment versus the unattached. Because
well.
how hard is that? That's
Well, it
super hard.
depends. I mean, if you're not attached, there's lots of things in my life I've been unattached, and I was able to get good information from God through the
All right.
method I was telling
So
you
it's
about.
hard. It's not hard if you're already not attached, but that's like,
Well, so the example,
come on.
it's like when I
It's
was
like it's
I
easy to
was
be rich if you're rich.
losing all my money in my stock account. It's like, come on, God, give me a winner, give me a winner, and it's like, okay, here it is. And I'd put money on it,
Yeah.
lose every time.
I already told you the secret to winning in the stock
Oh yeah,
market.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
do the
right.
opposite of that I do.
Yeah, so
So,
that's I
well,
never
let me
got
ask
good
you about
information.
unattachment.
Okay,
So unattachment. What one of the things that I have done to help me with that, uh, and I just want you to comment on this. What I've been doing that's given me some success, at least in my own like anguish, right? Over
yeah, yeah,
like, oh, I'm gonna sacrifice for God or whatever that
yeah, right, right,
thing
right.
is people think is more like uh going through all of these steps of accomplishment that I think I'm going to want. I think I want it, like you said, I think I want to move to Hawaii, but I'm willing to go anywhere, God. Well, what am I going to get when I go to Hawaii? Well, I'm going to get, whatever, tropical paradise,
Yeah,
babes in bikinis. I don't know, whatever people think.
yeah,
And then it's like, and then if I go through them all, in the end, it's going to be what I really want. Well, I want peace. I want happiness.
yeah.
I want fulfillment. And in my mind, I've gone down those roads so many times. It's easy to see that the thing that I want the most, it's not the thing that's really going to give it to me because all of these things have a very short-lived, like fulfillment cycle, right? Like very quickly unfulfilling, and then I need to get something else. And
Yeah.
so instead, can I imagine losing everything? Can I imagine losing that thing that I think I need so much? And then can I be fulfilled or happy without the thing.
Yeah.
And if I can go through that imaginary exercise and then be okay, it's easy for me to be like, you know what? I don't know, God. I don't know which is better for me. I have no idea. So please make your way clear because I'm just going to do whatever that is because I don't even have the necessary information to make menial good choices like that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I used to go through a similar thing when I was a kid. I would get like 25 cents allowance. I'm an old guy. In those days, 25 cents was a decent allowance weekly. I
You're
saved,
super old.
I saved coffee cans full of quarters. I just saved tons and every time that I'd want to go buy a toy with it, I'd go to the toy store. I'd take a look at the toys, like, oh man, I got to have that toy. And I think, okay, well, I'll play with it for a couple of weeks, and then I kind of get bored with it, and then it's going to end up in my closet, and so, but it would completely eliminate my desire for the toy, and I'd take my money and go home, put it in the coffee can. But I mean, I did that many, many times, so it's the same type of thing. It's like, and then what? Well, I'm going to move to Hawaii. Okay. And then what? Well, then I'll buy a house. Okay. All right. And then what? Well, then I'll work really, really hard trying to pay for my house.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what? Well, what? I guess I'll eventually retire. Yeah, and then what? I guess eventually I drop dead. And then what? So it's the same type of process of kind of, it's kind of like when you're a little kid and there's a monster under the bed. The quickest way to make the monster disappear is just look. So it's examining our desires, and then what? You know, what then? That it starts to diminish it. It's for me as a kid, the desire for that toy would just evaporate. So, it's whatever technique works for you, but it's much better to when you remove that intense desire, it's much easier to hear the promptings of your high self or God within you. And then of course, then the decisions are much wiser. They're much wiser, right? So I mean, it's that process. So if you're completely unattached, then it'll be easy to hear God, right? But if you're a
Mm.
normal human, we have a certain amount of attachments, but they always end up disappointing because
Well, what about the opposite of the and then what for the desire, but you can kind of do it and then what also for the worst thing that could happen, right? All
yeah,
the things you're trying to avoid, not
yeah, your
move towards.
fears, yeah,
Because there's that same energetic block, right?
sure,
I'm feeding, I'm drawing to me the things I want by not wanting them, and I'm
sure.
keeping
Well,
the things away from me that I really want from wanting them. It's like,
so
what the
so you could say it's a form of attachment. We don't think of attachment as far as fears, but you're highly attached to your fears, which then help manifest them, right? So you're attached to desires, but you're also attached to fears. I mean, if you're just so deathly afraid of being homeless, in a sense, the energy flows where attention goes. You're helping to manifest that. So, when I went through times when financially was really, really hard, it's like, okay, so all right, so you're broke. All right, you lose your house. Okay, out on the street. Okay, then what? Well, I don't really have any bills anymore at that point. I'm just living on the street. It's like, yeah, all right, I'll find out where they're digging good food out of garbage dumps, and I'll just help people during the day. Other homeless people, it's like, well, it wouldn't be so bad. A lot less stress that I'm going through right now. So yeah, face your fears, and that also helps diminish the power of them. Just as
Mm,
if you examine your desires, that also can begin to diminish the power of them. And then
mm,
when your mind's neither being pushing or pulling anything, pushing bad stuff, what you consider bad stuff away, or pulling good stuff to you, then you can more easily go into what Baba calls the ideal state, which is contentment. Contentment. Now, most of us think we can only be content when all of our problems have been solved and all your desires have been fulfilled. Well, that's never going to happen for the normal human being. That's because no matter how many problems you solve, other problems pop up. No matter how many desires you fulfill, two more sprout for every desire you fulfill. So it's kind of that desirelessness and fearlessness where you can just be in the moment and be content. And that is what Baba says is the highest state, is contentment. And contentment, in my mind, is you're in the moment. There's nothing pulling you in the past that you're regretting or wishing for happen, and the future that you're dreading or trying to get to. You're not being pushed in the past or the future. You're not trying to pull things to you that you want. You're not trying to push away things that you don't want. So you can just be, and in that quiet state of beingness, you can experience your true self, which is
mm.
bliss, and just have contentment. It just would remind me of some of the ancient sages in India. They'd just be living in the woods, loincloth, eating roots and berries, and just completely content. And there was a story about Alexander the Great, that as he was conquering all of the world, he had heard about this great sage in India living in the woods. So he wanted to test him. So he sent his representative to the woods, and he found him. And he said, "The great King Alexander, the king of all the world, uh, wishes to ask you questions. And he goes, yeah, sure. He goes, oh, no, no, but you have to go to his royal court and present yourself in front of him. And he goes, no, thanks. I'm happy right here. He goes, well, I was told then to cut your head off if you refuse to come. He goes, take it. And with that, the man left, because that was Alexander's test to see if he was the real thing.
Mm.
And then when Alexander heard his response, he came and met the saint and was able to at least have questions answered. But I thought that was pretty wise of him. But if you're conquering the whole world, you can't be a moron. That's not an easy thing to do. So he was a pretty smart cookie. So he realized that if this man truly, truly was this great saint, that he would not be attached even to his own life, which gave him ultimate contentment, because it's like, live it, leave it, doesn't matter. I'm in the presence of the great creator, and that's the most important thing.
Mm.
So yeah, the more you I remember Baba would he had a program called Putting a Ceiling on Desires. He didn't say, I want you to get rid of all your desires, right? He goes, look, just don't indulge everything. Try to put a cap on it, right? So yeah, you want a nice car? Okay, get a nice car. Oh, one should be enough, right? Don't just keep chasing material desires, because for every desire fulfilled, two more sprout up in its place. It's endless chase. The lie of desires is at a subconscious level. It tells you, if you just fulfill me, you'll be happy.
Mm.
Well, you're content for a little while. It's like let's just say you've been dying to get this Mercedes Benz because you feel like it's a beautiful car and everyone will look at you with admiration, and yeah, I'll look better in my position. I'll get back. So you're just desiring to have this car. So finally you and you're not quite, maybe let's just say financially, it's a stretch, right? It's going to, that monthly payment's going to be rough, but you talk your wife into it because, oh, business will be better and all whatever you come up with, and you get
Mm.
it. Well, when you get it, oh my God, you're just on cloud nine. It's like,
Mm.
oh my God, and you feel so important and special in your Mercedes, right? Until you're in a parking lot and you park way off to the side because and somebody parked right next to you. They'd open their door and dinged your paint job just a little bit. Now you're just like flipping out. You're just so angry. It's like, I want to get this guy's gonna pay for this. And he comes out, he goes, I didn't do that. He's like, well, you were parked right, you wasn't there. No, can't prove I did it. So now it leads you into some new fresh hell because of the flip side of desires being fulfilled. So one side of that coin is contentment, the other side is misery when it's taken away.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. So let's just say, this girl of your dreams, and you woo her, and finally, she starts going out with you, and you're on cloud nine, everything's great. And a couple of months later, you see her on her cell phone. It's like, what? Nothing. You find out she's texting her old boyfriend. Now you go through hell. So that's desires. Two sides of the coin. One is contentment. The other side is misery. But neither side of the coin is true peace and happiness. Yeah,
Mm.
it's a temporary satiation, which is not true peace. True peace and happiness comes from high frequency. As Yogananda would say, high thinking and simple living. That's how put it. So living from high principles, of doing what's right, speaking the truth, being kind, being forgiving, and keep your life simple living, right? You don't have to have multiple houses. Now you're trying to rent them out because you got to pay for it every month, and now the headaches, and then you get somebody who's not paying your rent, and then now they won't leave. You're going to try to throw them out. Now they're squatting. It's just, it just, Baba would say, he'd say, less luggage makes traveling a delight. So what does that mean? Well, the obvious is if you ever traveled around the world, or you got tons of luggage, it's just what a hassle. But you got one little bag. I mean, it just makes it so much easier, right, to
It
travel,
is. It
right?
is. What is it? High
But
living, simple living, high living.
high thinking and simple living.
There you go.
So living high frequency, high principled living, doing what's right always, speaking the truth, simple, right? But less luggage makes traveling a joy. Well, it's the same thing in life. The more luggage you have, right? I'd say more accurately, more attachments you have, right? Because you can have all kinds of stuff, but if you're not attached to it, then it's no longer luggage. It's still a
Mm.
bit of a burden, I guess, if you got 5 houses and 10 cars and got a couple businesses. It's you're busy with all that, right? You ever see some of these guys that they refurbish some of these older cars, whether it's a classic Mustang or whatever, and
Mm.
they have like a 40-50 dollar paint job on them, and they, when they have car shows, they bring them out and they're just immaculate. Well, these guys, they keep them in their garage all week,
Yeah.
and on Sunday they drive to their favorite donut shop where the other guys go, but they always will park it right where they can keep their eyes on it the whole time. They never
Yeah.
take their eyes off. So that's
Oh yeah,
that's
you those guys rent store those cars
oh my
in
God.
facilities, in
Oh
special
yeah, and if
facilities, not even
and if
homes.
they're driving somewhere and a stone pops up from the car in front of them and hits their paint job, they lose their minds. So there's a classic case where your possessions possess you. It's where Jesus said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to go through heaven. Well, some say that there was a stone structure that a camel could fit through, but it was really, really hard. So he's saying a rich man can't go to heaven. But the point is, possessions are fine as long as they don't possess you.
Right.
But and that's where Baba says, uh, 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 keep your luggage, keep your luggage light and make the travel of light. Keep your uh, attachments down, and it makes going through life a lot easier.
Mm.
A lot easier.
So what's a good way, any kind of daily practices to uh because these things, our 40 minutes of talking, or when we meet, or when I'm doing a devotion, or when I'm meditating, or it's wonderful and peaceful.
Yeah.
Right? But I could fall apart basically with on any number of issues in my life. So these spiritual practices that I have, it's not so I can get somewhere and then stop. I made it. It seems like those things are reoccurring, if like never ending. I'm not going to make it and no longer need spiritual practices. They're like, what? First of all, do we need them forever? And then what's some good spiritual practices to keep us enjoying
Well, I told you
life
what
and
Baba
content?
said. One of his students had asked him, Baba, how long do we have to do these spiritual practices? He goes, as long as you're breathing. So when you're no longer breathing, you can quit your spiritual practices
All right.
because,
Well, at least I got a goal.
yeah. So, but it's a lot like swimming up a river. How hard do I have to swim? Well, where do you want to end up? If you want to go up the river, yeah, you got to swim faster than the river's flowing downstream. So yeah, it's so it depends on how much peace you want to have. Well, okay, you want a lot of peace. All right. Well, how hectic is your life? It's very hectic. Okay, you got to do a lot of spiritual practice, But I mean, a lot of the classic religions have you pray 3 times a day, and that's not just ritual. It's because it kind of re-anchors you in what's real and true. In other words, re-anchors you in the spiritual aspect of life. Otherwise, the river of the cares of your busy world just carry you right downstream. The next thing you know, you haven't even thought about God for months, and everything's, you're miserable and nothing's going right, and it's like, what happened? Oh, I completely forgot all my spiritual practices. So it's just some simple spiritual practices. Prayer 3 times a day, whatever. The Muslims, they face Mecca 3 times a day. Now, whether they're doing it sincerely or not, that's between them and God, but the practice is good. But you don't have to do anything that formal. Just take a moment 3 times a day and just say whatever, pray, or just speak to God. It's like, God, I'm having a rough day here. Please don't let me forget about you, and just let me continue to look for an opportunity to be of some service today. So you're just re-anchoring at 3 key points during the day, and that's not an intense spiritual practice. It's not like meditating all day, or serving the homeless all day, right?
Yeah.
But it at least gives you some anchor point. You don't go too far down the river.
Yeah, just a moment can be so
Yeah,
helpful as far as experience.
just a moment of just remembering God, just remembering God, and just speaking to Him even for a couple of seconds as a friend. It's like, hi God, you see me down here. Just I didn't don't let me forget you, and don't let me
Yeah.
forget to pass on some of your love today.
Yes.
Amen. Right, whatever sincere one that helps you re-anchor in that frequency. All right, and you feel it when you raise your frequency. Just thinking about God a lot of times raises your frequency and activates your frontal lobes. Man, we get so caught up in stuff, and then before you know you're aggravated, and then before you know you want to punch somebody in the face because they're just an idiot, and then rah, 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 how you go home, it's like rah, rah, it's like whoa, yeah, you went quite a ways downstream, didn't you today? What are you talking
Swept
about?
away. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, swept away.
All right, 2 minutes left. Tell me a wrap it up here because it started out how to make good decisions, and it seems like the decisions itself aren't as important as where you're at when you're making decisions.
Well, once again, frequency. If you keep some awareness of frequency, that when you keep your frequency higher, you're going to operate from higher aspects of your consciousness, whether it's conscious, subconscious, or superconscious mind. So it just keeping awareness of who you are and what all this is about makes a big difference. So if you're super busy, then just set a little automatic time. I think that thing of prayer 3 times a day is wonderful. If you use it right, I'm sure a lot of people are just going through motions like most people, right? But if you actually use that concept, and I told you the Gayatri Baba said, you can give up all mantras, all spiritual practices, never give up the Gayatri. And the Gayatri is supposed to be done 3 times a day, like in the early day, early morning, sunrise, midday, and then later in the afternoon. Right. So that's if you just did that. But it doesn't even have the Gayatri is tremendous. We've discussed it, Gayatri. But even just a simple take a few moments to say hello to your dearest, nearest friend, the creator. And just say, God, I love you. Don't let me forget to just pass that love on a little bit today. Amen. Right? Just put something
Hmm.
sincere from the heart. And that anchors you very, very quickly into higher frequency.
Hmm. Very good. Thank you, my friend.
All right, brother. We apologize to everybody. Listen, if you guys have any specific questions, if you put them down in the comments below, if we ever remember to read it, right? And we'll be happy to answer some of them if they're appropriate to be answered on this format.
Yes.
Okay. All right, man.
All right. One moment.